3 a.m. My hand shakes. I forgot my name before an exam I studied 40 hours for. Planes are grounded. Sirens are silenced. 13 million students step into the arena. And most will leave broken. Not because they didn't study, because they studied wrong. You thought studying like it's an emergency would make you invincible. It makes you invisible to your body, to your needs, to your breaking point. Wrong. You push through chapters like you're diffusing a bomb. Midnight oil flickers. Textbooks pile high. Your breath shortens. Your spine stiffens. Sweat drips from your palm. The neon cram school sign outside your window flickers like it's judging you. You tell yourself, urgency means importance. If you're not panicking, you're not progressing. But deep down, something starts to whisper, enough. You know this feeling. The eyes staring back in the mirror at 3:17 a.m. are glassy, hollow. That's burnout too. Over 55% of college students show signs of academic burnout. And yet, we keep studying like the syllabus is a ransom note, like the exam is wired to explode, like missing one lecture will shatter our future, collapsed. I lived inside that logic. Urgency became my identity, productivity, my performance drug, and panic, my baseline. One of my mentors in neuroscience called this a cognitive red zone, where memory drops and adrenaline fakes focus. But the cost is your mind. Focus dies under pressure that never lets up. And what we worship as discipline, it's often just fear with a nice font. This is engineered. I remember nights where my chest tightened under the weight of textbooks heavier than my ribs. Library lights buzzing like an ambulance that never arrives. The ticking clock louder than my thoughts. I memorized neurotransmitters, but forgot how to feel joy. I learned neuron pathways, but ignored my own nervous system. I optimized schedules, biohacked routines, watched 47 productivity videos in 2 weeks. But none of them asked me, why are you doing this? The silence did, and it answered, because you think panic is the price of excellence. But what if that silence you chase becomes the sound that breaks you? In the next part, I'll show you why more effort isn't the solution, and why your emergency mindset might be the hidden fault line beneath everything you've built. I broke at 21, not in a blaze, not with tears. I broke like a chair losing one screw a day. By the time it collapsed, no one heard it fall. There was no dramatic moment, just a slow dissolve. I'd read the same sentence 12 times. My hands trembled even when resting. Sleep felt like betrayal. Rest felt like weakness dressed in comfort. And still I kept going, because everyone around me was drowning too. We called it ambition. We wore our decay like medals. But this is what they don't tell you. Urgency floods your brain with cortisol, not once, not twice, but chronically. And chronic cortisol? It shrinks your hippocampus. That's your memory center. It disrupts synaptic plasticity. That's your ability to learn. You think it's discipline, it's damage. A recent study showed that students under sustained performance pressure lose 30% of long-term retention. You're not tired, you're chemically altered, and you didn't choose it. Top neuroscience journals now call this cognitive fatigue collapse. Your brain stops optimizing for comprehension. It starts optimizing for threat detection. Because you trained it that every page is danger, every test a predator. That's not intelligence, that's trauma. So I changed, but not with motivation, with surrender, and started rebuilding with science. I removed all emergency words from my language. No more I'm falling behind. No more I have to crush this. No more if I fail I'm done. Because words aren't just sound, they are software. Your brain reads them as code. And I had been running a crash script for years, so I replaced them with rituals that anchor, not force. Each morning before screens, before strategy, I sat, no phone, just 8 deep breaths. Box breathing, in for 4, hold 4. This sounds small. It triggers your parasympathetic system, the one that says, you're safe now. And safety is the soil where focus grows. Then I set a timer, not to prove anything, but to respect biology. Because your brain isn't a machine, it's a wave. Ultradian rhythms peak every 90 minutes. But deep focus comes in 25-minute surges. You ride the wave, or it crashes on you. After the sprint, I stopped. Fully. to check social media, to reset, eyes closed, because that's when integration begins. But the silence didn't heal me at first. It hollowed me, because I still believed I had to earn rest. What I discovered next wasn't a tip. You've tried focus timers. You've stacked Pomodoro sessions like sandbags against a flood. You've downloaded every app, color-coded your planner, and caffeinated your panic. Still distracted? It's not a discipline issue. It's a nervous system shutdown. Your brain wasn't built for constant alerts. It wasn't meant to chase deadlines like prey. When you live in perpetual emergency, your prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and memory, dims like a dying light bulb. This isn't weakness, so I stopped asking, how can I focus more, and started asking, how can I feel safe enough to focus? That's when I built my non-negotiable focus loop. Not for productivity, for neural repair. Every morning before I let the world in, I give my mind an anchor, stillness. No phone, no music, just breath and presence. Then, a single scent, peppermint oil. It became my trigger. Every time I sat to study, I smelled it. Every time I smelled it, I focused. That's classical conditioning. Pavlov made dogs salivate. I made my brain stabilize. You can do this. Choose a scent, a space, a ritual, repeat. Until your brain stops fighting and starts recognizing, we're safe now. Next, 25-minute study sprints. But here's the difference. I don't use a timer to force focus. I use it to honor rhythm. Ultradian rhythms, 90-minute biological waves, govern your alertness. But deep cognitive spikes peak around 25-30 minutes. Ride that wave, don't break it. After each sprint, silence again. Not Netflix, not Instagram, just breath, no input. Because input hijacks integration. Here's the science. A Stanford study revealed that short, intentional rest between study blocks improves long-term retention by over 40%. Another showed that 2 hours of silence daily boosted hippocampal growth in mice. That's the part of your brain that stores memory. Still think rest is lazy? But let me say this clearly. Silence only heals when you choose it. If it's forced from collapse, from panic, from burnout, it doesn't soothe. It scars. I used to fear silence. Now I need it more than sleep. Because in that stillness, I stopped seeing study as war and started seeing it as alignment. That's the real shift. But if your reward is silence, what happens when silence starts screaming? In the next part, I'll show you how to break the achievement addiction loop and why chasing success can mimic withdrawal. You're not lazy. You're neurologically hijacked. But it can be reversed. You remember that one moment walking out of an exam you crushed. No smile, no pride, just emptiness. Why? Because the high disappeared too fast and the crash came faster. That's not burnout. That's dopamine debt. The brain rewards survival, and when you weaponize achievement, you trick your system into thinking only results are safe. So every success must be bigger, faster, louder, until silence feels like failure. And stillness? Withdrawal. Neuroscience labs now track academic overload as dopamine burnout syndrome. Over 60% of high-performing students experience dopamine dysregulation. It's not motivation collapse, it's chemical. You didn't just chase grades, you wired your brain to only feel alive when you're chasing. So rest doesn't feel like restoration. It feels like uselessness, like losing. Even when you've already won, I lived that loop: wake, grind, ache, perform, crash, repeat. I wasn't addicted to progress. I was addicted to avoiding worthlessness. And that's when I realized this isn't about study, it's about identity. So I rebuilt my reward system, not to celebrate outcomes, but to value presence. After each session, I'd ask, not, did I win today? But was I aligned today? Aligned with my rhythm, with my intention, with my future self. And slowly, my brain stopped panicking when I paused. It stopped begging for validation. It started trusting me. You think focus comes from obsession. It comes from safety, from trust, from rhythm. You weren't wired to grind until collapse. You were wired to build, to become. But first, you have to break the narrative that panics you progress. Here's your challenge. Reclaim rest. Recode your rituals. Rewire your reward. Not tomorrow. Now. Because every day you delay, you reinforce the loop that broke you. This wasn't a lesson, it was a rescue. And the next part? It goes deeper, because you thought burnout was the final boss. But what if it's just the tutorial? Next, we go inside the dopamine loop to expose how the mind turns pressure into addiction and how to break free before you forget who you are. Subscribe not for content, for clarity.